So I'm going to talk real quick about how to seal your papers onto your Altoid tin. First, when you cut out your papers, you want to make sure that your papers do not hang off the edge of your tin at all when you cut them out. So here is Jalen's, and she's got them cut out really, really nicely. You can turn it over and check to make sure that there isn't any paper showing on the edge of the tin. I'm going to show you an old one that I have that the student didn't cut her papers out at all very well. And you can see the papers are sticking off. What happens is when you go to open up your tin, your finger gets stuck on that paper and it actually takes the paper off the tin. So that's bad. You want to make sure that you are cutting them a little bit more on the edge. So Kate here, Kate Jinkerson's, is really nicely done. You can see that she has her paper cut a little bit past the edge of the Altoid tin. If you flip the Altoid tin over, you can see that there's no paper sticking off the edge, and that is going to be on your rubrics when I grade. If your paper's hanging off at all and you didn't trim them well, that will have points taken off. Look at the back. You can see that the silver all around the edge of your tin is showing on Kate's, so she cut that out really well. So next step is to get the Mod Podge out of the cabinet, and this is our sealant that we're using to adhere our papers onto our tin. So you want to get a Mod Podge for your table to share and shake it up. And you can use some of the Mod Podge that's on the lid, or you can use what's in the container. It does appear like glue, but it dries clear. So it'll look like it's white, but then it'll dry. So the first step, you want to get a nice size brush. We've got kind of a medium size brush to do Jalen's. So what you want to do is you're going to do a very thin layer. So this is a water-based sealant. So what does water do to paper? Water disintegrates paper, or it'll make it super wrinkly. So we don't want to really add too much Mod Podge, just a thin layer of Mod Podge. Making sure that it's all coated all over the surface. And then this is just underneath the paper. I'm going to stick the paper on, make sure it's not sticking off anywhere. And then I'm going to push the paper down for quite a while to make sure that it has a good seal. You're going to want to kind of rub the paper to make sure that you're not getting any bubbles or any wrinkles, and you shouldn't if you didn't use too much Mod Podge. And I want to push it down so it's good and stuck down. And I'm really making sure my edges are really pushed down nice. Then I'm going to Mod Podge these. Is this one your top? So I'm going to Mod Podge these the same way. So I'm going to put a thin layer underneath and really push it down like I showed you. Same thing with the bottom as well. So you can do the same thing with those. The first day that you Mod Podge, you're not going to want to Mod Podge the bottom because it's going to have to sit in the drawer. And if this is sticky, that's going to be a bad thing. So what I tell students to do is just do the top and the insides first, let those dry, and then the next class period do the bottom. One thing with your bottom though, so she's got her name on correctly. It opens up like this. I would not put my bottom on upside down like this because it looks like Altoids is upside down. See? I would put my bottom on like that. So flip it because I think that makes more sense than the other way. And that's what Kate did. So if you flip Kate's over like that, that's how she glued hers on. So don't glue on the bottom piece until your other ones are dry. So after you've glued down the bottom, you're going to want to put a thin layer of Mod Podge. So very, very thin. Remember, it is water-based, so we don't want to add too much Mod Podge ever to our paper. So I'm just putting a thin coat of Mod Podge on the surface of the paper. I'm going to let that dry a little bit during class, probably put a thin layer on the other papers, and then come back and put another thin layer. Then come back and put another thin layer. I'm going to let those thin layers really dry well, because what you're kind of doing is building up the Mod Podge so that it doesn't wrinkle your paper. If I really glopped it on like that on my paper, that's when you get wrinkles, that's when you get bubbles. So you want to just do a thin layer at a time. I would say about 4 thin layers of thin Mod Podge, and then once you've layered on those thin layers, then you can put on a little bit of a thicker layer. And if it starts to bubble or anything, you want to push it down. And that is how we Mod Podge.